Hi, I'm Amy, and this is A Star Reads, and it's time for a Sunday sum up. And I say this because I wasn't actually planning on doing a Sunday sum up this week. I gave myself permission to not stress about reading this week and not have to read anything this week, which, obviously a lot of weeks I don't read anything anyways, but usually I stress about it. This week I was like, nope, you're just not gonna worry about it. Because I know I've said multiple times, like, I wanna have a work, school, BookTube life balance, and realistically, that's easy to say, but when I actually get stressed, I don't do so well at it. And so part of the problem is that when I'm that overwhelmed, I have so many things that I'm stressing about getting done that I get nothing accomplished, like nothing actually happens, because I go into this state of like, I'm not able to accomplish anything, so I don't actually get anything done, but I spend the whole time stressing about the fact that I'm not getting anything done while I'm not getting anything done. So it's this ugly, vicious cycle that doesn't do me any good, and I need to figure out ways to actually break that. And so this week, one of my things was, I'm just not gonna worry about reading. If I read, it's gonna be a bonus. And if I don't, that's okay, because I have a lot of other things that need to get accomplished since I'm in school. And you guys are very kind about letting me know that it's okay to take time. And so I did that, and I did get a little bit of reading done. I will give you a review of one book because I was still listening to an audiobook. And so I started last night actually working on Neverending Story, and that's the only book that I made any progress on this week. So whatever I said I was currently working on last week, that's still what I'm currently working on, and I haven't made it any further. But Neverending Story, I've read over 300 pages now, which means I have like less than 100 pages left to read. Considering it's a middle grade book, hopefully that won't take too long, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself. So that's kind of where I'm at book-wise this week. As far as what actually happened this week, it was a really nice week. I got to have 2 lessons with 5th graders for my science class, and so we got to teach them. It was 2 separate classes that we taught the same lesson, and it was all about energy. So they actually got to make pinwheels because we're thinking about wind energy, and it was so much fun. The first group was like on point. They were engaged, and the second group was a little less engaged, which actually was really good for me because I found that when they were less engaged, I was a little less engaged. And so it's a good learning experience to see how you react to different students' behaviors. And it wasn't like it was bad with the second group. They were still really good, and we still got a lot accomplished. It's just that the questions I asked were more messy. Like, I felt like I did a much messier job on Wednesday, and on Monday I felt like I'm on point. And then Wednesday it was like, I got a little frazzled with some of my questions, or they weren't as thoughtful. And it was because of how I was reacting to my students. And that's amazing. Like, it's amazing to have these different opportunities with different students to see how I'm gonna behave and how I can improve being a teacher. And then on Thursday, I got to do my literacy assessment with my little 1st grader. And I also got to sit in on the 1st grade class and watch a mini lesson that the teacher was having. And I had such a blast. The 1st graders were so adorable. I mean, they are adorable, but it was so cool to see them learning to read and all the things they were noticing and how they wanted to interact with me. Like, the 1st graders were super excited about me. It felt really good. I'm like, oh, I like you guys too. It was awesome. And then Friday was an incredible day because one of my closest friends had a baby. I have a new nephew, and he is so adorable. My friend is healing. It was a bit of a rough time, but I'm kind of like, now I'm like, oh, I hadn't planned on going and visiting. This is in Anchorage, going and visiting over the summer, just because I'm trying to work full time over the summer. I've got a lot of things going, but now that I've seen the pictures, and I'm like, I'm just so excited for them. They're gonna be amazing parents, but I'm also like, I gotta go meet him. So I'm hoping at some point this summer, I can at least take a weekend and fly up to Anchorage and meet this little dude because he is so cute. And I'm excited to be an auntie. I mean, I am an auntie, but like, I'm excited to be an auntie of another little nephew. And then on the same day, Friday, I hit 1,000 subscribers, which I cannot tell you how humbling and how wonderful and how appreciative I am. It's incredible, and I can't believe that this has come to this. Like, I've made so many amazing connections on this channel. I have loved sharing moments of my life with you, but then also getting to hear what's going on with you. And then of course, books. Books are something that I've always loved. I've always been a reader, but I've never been as much of a reader as I am now, thanks to BookTube. This came at a time during COVID when everything was so stressful. And I'm realizing now that I didn't feel like I was that stressed during COVID, but in hindsight, I am so exhausted all the time because of, I think, what we all went through as a society during COVID. And it's funny how it's like manifesting now after the fact. And, you know, socially, I feel like I suffered a lot during COVID. I mean, I've made a lot of connections through this, and that's been wonderful. And that's been a thing that has helped a lot because my physical personal interactions with people has suffered. Like, I was a much more extroverted person before this, and it's much easier now for me to stay home and not go do things and not make those connections outside of my internet life or my home life. And I am lucky that I had the opportunity to get to know so many people through BookTube, because it could be very lonely without that. Editing Amy here. I was editing this and I'm like, I make it sound like COVID is completely over. I am well aware that it is not. But I mean, the majority of the shutdowns and whatnot, and how difficult it got for over a year, where we were basically not allowed to go anywhere. And especially up here in Washington, we were really being very careful about COVID. So that's what I mean by it's in hindsight, because it's still, COVID is still a thing. It's just that it's not as prevalent at the moment where I live. The reception that I have received from all of you, I know that I have the best subscribers because of the connections we have made. Even people who don't necessarily comment on my videos, but are there just supporting my channel or have sent me messages directly on Instagram. It means so much to me. And then all these BookTube friends that I have created where we've actually spent time together. There's something really special about having a group of friends that you can share an interest like this with, and you can have really intense, deep, important conversations, which is the kind of person that I am. I tend to, when I have friendships, I'm sometimes maybe too deep, but I like those deep conversations. I like meaningful conversations. And the nice thing about books and having book discussions is that you really get the opportunity to do that. And so we've got a community here where we do that, and it's incredible, and it's so amazing, and I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate every single subscriber who's clicked that subscribe button and then watches my videos. It's amazing, and for me, who's not a very humble person, it's very humbling. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see where my channel goes. And it's a lot of work, but it's worth it, and it's been so much fun. It's brought a lot of creativity to my life, and it's an outlet when I'm tired of school, because trust me, I've been going to school for a long time. I am tired of it. I'm very tired of it. So again, thank you. And yeah, here's to another 1,000. Oh, and I will have an announcement video coming out hopefully in the beginning of next week that is going to be something that I would like to do with you to celebrate 1,000 subscribers. It's so we can spend a little bit of time together, do something fun together as celebration, and hopefully you'll be interested in joining. And yeah, I'll let you know about that soon. So when I was thinking about this Sunday sum up, what would I do? Because I don't have much to share. I thought, hey, you know, it might be fun to do that quarter year crisis book tag that everybody's been doing to kind of get caught up on where I'm at with my reading this year. And it's also really important sometimes to like take those small victories and look at those and say, you know, I feel like I'm not doing much right now, but look at what I have done, and get you out of that like I'm not accomplishing anything mindset, and focuses more on what I have accomplished and all the things that I am proud of. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that tag. It's been a while since I've done a tag, and we'll see where I'm at with my reading for 2022. But before I do that, let's go check out my one review for the week of the audiobook that I was listening to. Okay, so on April 14th, I finished my 4th book of the month, The Unhoneymooners by Christina. I listened to this one on audiobook, and honestly, I have not been doing much reading aside from that. So audiobook's the only way I've been successful to read lately. I think I'm going to give this one 3.75 stars. Now, I did enjoy it, and I ended up enjoying it a lot more as it went along, but it started out kind of slow for me enjoyment-wise. I wasn't very interested in the story to begin with, and I really did not like either of the characters from the very beginning. And I could tell that it was the intention of the book, but it made it hard to care in the beginning. I realized that for me, romance novels probably should not be read on audiobook or listened to on audiobook, because I don't enjoy romance novels as much when I listen to them on audiobook. It's like something I've known for a while now, and yet all I felt like listening to was a romance, because I wasn't feeling like listening to any of the other books that I had. After a while, I did really start enjoying the process of listening to it, but I never warmed up to the narrator for the audiobook, and that
was something I expected to happen, because that is how I feel about most romance narrators. And that's a me thing, because obviously there's a lot of romance books that are narrated through audiobook and they are successful, and I'm just the one who has the issue with them, so that's a problem for me. But this book is basically an enemies to lovers story about these twin girls. Well, it's mostly about one twin named Olive, and her sister Amy is getting married. She's getting married to this guy named Dane. Olive is the maid of honor for her sister's wedding, and she has to deal with Dane's older brother, Ethan, who she cannot stand. From the very moment she met him, well, she was attracted to him, but then he was kind of a jerk to her, and he's been a jerk ever since, and she just can't stand him. She just absolutely hates this guy, and he doesn't like her. Something happens that forces Ethan and Olive to have to take the honeymoon of their siblings, and they have to deal with each other. One thing I do really enjoy about Christina Lauren's writing is that they have some fun, quirky comebacks and things like that. They're pretty quick with the wit, and I did notice that in A Holidays, which is another Christina Lauren that I have read. And both of the Christina Lauren romance books that I have read, I have given within a 3-star range, and that's good news, because for me, romances often land in the 3-star range. But I do enjoy romances for what they offer me, and that's exactly what I needed this past couple of weeks. I needed a romance. I needed something that was light, fluffy, and not too serious. Didn't make me think too much. I didn't want to be thinking, because I've already been thinking way too much. And so it gave me all that. And so that's why I'm going to say 3.75 stars, because it's not quite a 4 stars because of the beginning of the book. I had to take that into consideration, because I was struggling at the beginning to have any feelings for these characters at all. One of the other things I forgot to mention about this book that I actually really enjoyed was the level of communication between the characters. I know miscommunication is a huge portion of most romance novels. Granted, most of this was about a lack of communication. That's why they hated each other, because they had miscommunicated signals and stuff like that. But once they actually were starting to have some kind of relationship, there was a level of communication that I thought was very healthy for relationships, and something we don't always see in romance novels. So I appreciated it. It wasn't perfect at all times, and there was definitely miscommunication, but there was an attempt made for a healthy communicative relationship. And that's what I enjoyed about this. It was a different perspective on the whole communication concept. So I threw this together last minute, and I've got my questions, my answers here. So if I'm looking down at my paper quite a bit, it's because I didn't really prepare for this too much, but I just wanted to go through these questions and see what I have done so far this year. So question number 1 is, how many books have you read so far in 2022? If I'm including the picture books that I read for my literature course at the beginning of the year, I've read 103 books. Now that is incredible. It sounds amazing, but 70 of those were picture books, which is still really, really good. If I take the picture books out of the equation, I've read 33 books. And that's a big difference. But that really averages out to 9.5 books a month, which is a good average for me. I'd say 9 is a good number of books each month. There's definitely going to be months that I'll read more, especially during the summer or when I'm not actively in school. But then there's going to be months like here in April where I'm not going to have the capacity for it. Question number 2, have you already found a book that you think might be a favorite in 2022? Yes. The first thing that came to mind when I thought about this one was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I listened to this on audiobook, and it blew me away. It was so good. And it's narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo, and you can tell she has experience like with slam poetry or telling poetry. This is a YA contemporary story. It feels like a memoir in a lot of ways. It's not, but it feels like a memoir. The way it was in verse and how much emotion was conveyed through this book was hard to review because I was so excited by it. I didn't know what to say. Like, you know, when you're like, speechless because something is so good. That's how I felt about The Poet X. So if you really like audiobooks, this is an incredible audiobook. And I'm sure that the physical book is good, but I recommend the audiobook. And there are very few books where I'm going to recommend the audiobook over the physical book. Question number 3, have you read any 1-star books or your least favorite book of the year? So luckily I have not DNF'd or read any 1-star books. I have 2 books, actually I have 3 books that are in the 2-star range, but one of them I'm not going to talk about because it's a picture book and I'm actually going to mention it later on. The 2 books that were in the 2-star range that just were okay, like they weren't great, they weren't
my favorites, but I still read them all the way through. I didn't have a problem. I could finish them. Were Are You Listening by Tillie Walden. This is a graphic novel, contemporary, actually magical realism. And the art was stunning. So I think it did get extra points for the art. The story itself was not for me, and I think it reminded me a lot of abstract art, where there are some art pieces that you're going to love and you're going to understand and they're going to call to you, and then there's some pieces that you're just not going to get. And that was true for this book. I did not get the story. It didn't work for me. It will work for some people, but I think it's going to be a specific audience. The other book, the book that I gave 2.5 stars, was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I picked up this romance because Mariana Zapata is very popular with her fans. People who love Mariana Zapata love all of her books, and they champion this book, absolutely champion it. And I get it. I get that if this is your style, then it's going to be something you absolutely love. And this one in particular was just not for me. The romance was too slow of a burn, with not enough tension build up throughout the story for me. I was not a fan of the main character, and she's the only person that we hear from. We don't get to hear from the main male character, which I would have liked. And the smut itself was just not to my taste. There were themes in the smut that I don't vibe with, and it just didn't do it for me, if you know what I mean. Like, it just didn't do it for me. And so that's fine, because everybody's gonna have different tastes, different things they're into, and this wasn't for me. And so I do feel like I will try another Mariana Zapata at some point. I probably won't listen to it on audiobook, which I did listen to this one on audiobook. I like to give most authors at least a second chance, because why not? You know, you never know. It could just be that one book that you just didn't enjoy. So I'm not saying that Zapata is not the author for me. I'm just saying in this particular instance, it wasn't for me. Question number 4. Most read genre so far. Now, this was actually really surprising, because last year I think I read a lot of fantasy, and same with the year before that. If we're considering the picture books included, it would be nonfiction, because most of the picture books that I read were nonfiction. But I actually read a bunch of contemporary and or romances this year so far, which surprised me, because that is a genre I always want to read more of because it's comforting, but it's not one that I get a chance to read a lot of. And when I was looking at all the books that I have read so far that were not picture books, either they were like YA adult or middle grade contemporaries, or they were adult romances. So I was like, that's really surprising. And it was really nice. And I've enjoyed them. I've really enjoyed those moments where I get to take a break from any serious thinking or serious thought, because I do read a lot for school, and that is not the kind of reading that it requires a lot of thinking. And so it's nice while I'm in school to get to relax a little more. I imagine that I will get to some more of the fantasy and the larger books. I know I'm currently working through Ship of Destiny and some other fantasies, but I'll probably get to read more of those come the summer. Question number 5. A book that surprised you. So this is that picture book. It was Bunheads by Misty Copeland, and this surprised me because I really did not enjoy this picture book. And I love ballet. I was so excited about this book because of the ballet. And Misty Copeland is an amazing ballerina, and she's done so much for ballet that I just expected so much more from this. And I'm looking at these books from more of an educator's perspective, so looking at them for what they can offer a student, whether it be representation or what have you. And I just felt like there was a lot more that I wanted from this book. If you want a full review of Bunheads, I will link the video up here where I talk about it. It was so surprising because I was expecting that one to be a 5-star. Of all the picture books I was reading, I was like, this is gonna be a 5-star. Question number 6, a book that has come out in 2022 already that you want to read but haven't. So I am planning on reading this month, The Weeping Tide by Amanda Foody. It's part of the Wilder Lore series, the second, and it came out in February. I haven't read it yet. I'm still hoping to get to this, but I'm actually going to talk about The Red Palace by June Her. Now, when I originally read June Her's Silence of Bones, I fell in love with her writing style. I was like, this is an author where every single book that comes out, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to read it quick, get to it as soon as it comes out. I'm going to follow this author and be reading all of her books. And I haven't yet. And The Red Palace came out in January. It's in a similar setting as Silence Bones. I don't know if it's the same time period. I'm bummed that I haven't gotten to any of June Her's other books, and that I haven't even thought about this one until I was thinking about books that have come out that I haven't read. I'm hoping that I get better at this going forward. I don't think you come here for recent releases, right? Because if you do, I'm sorry. Because I don't think you come here for recent releases. I just don't. If you know my channel well enough. So I would like to say that I am a true Junher fan, especially after reading this book that just, I loved her writing style so much. I wanted to read all the others, but it hasn't happened yet. So maybe one of these days I'll get to the Red Palace, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Question number 7, one goal you made that you're succeeding at. So one of the goals I made for this year was that I wanted to do monthly reading sprints. Every month I wanted to have at least one reading sprint on my channel, and I've succeeded, and it's been wonderful. And I'm not the most productive when it actually comes to my reading sprints. Like, I don't get much read. But the whole point for me of the reading sprints is to get to know you better, to have time spent with my subscribers so we can chat with each other. You can tell me what books you're reading. I get a better connection with you when I am live with you. And also, I have had other booktubers on my channels when I'm doing my reading sprints. So it gives me a chance to get to know these other booktubers better and spend time with them, which I love. And then it gives you a chance to get to know other booktubers that you may not know about. So like, it's been a great experience, and it's something I have stayed on top of, and I'm very happy with that. Question number 8, one goal that you made for 2022 that you need to focus on. When I realized that this was a goal that I had made, rightfully made, and am completely failing at, I was pretty upset with myself, because this isn't a goal that I should have fallen off of, but that is that I wanted to prioritize the books that I'm receiving from publishers and authors and whatnot. People reach out to me, ask me to read their books, and I don't do it. It's embarrassing, and it's really just, it's poor planning on my part. Or I start a book and other books become priorities because I'm buddy reading them with other people, and so then I put that other book on the back burner, and then I don't get to it. And that's really inconsiderate, considering people are reaching out to me asking me to read their books. So I don't like that this has become a pattern for me, and I need to figure out a way to change that so that people want to reach out to me and ask me to read their books. I do have a few books that I started, like A Bitter Fog. I did start A Flight of Broken Wings by Nipur Chowdhury. That particular book, A Flight of Broken Wings, I was not as engaged as I wanted to be, but I was also reading a whole bunch of books at the same time, so I wanted to go back and give it its proper attention, but then it just never happened. And this one I was making really good progress in, but it also didn't continue. I got distracted by other things, and I am not happy with that. I'm not happy with that at all. So I need to figure out some way to make myself a little more accountable for those particular books, because that is a goal that I think is important, and not following through on it. And finally, the last thing is to shout out to some new booktubers that you have found in 2022. And you know, it's really, this was hard for me because I have been aware of booktubers for a while, or I watch certain videos of theirs, but I'm not subscribed to their channels. And I have a lot of booktubers I already follow, and I'm trying to keep up with their videos, and I'm not always good at that. And I often don't really know when I added booktubers, but I'm gonna talk about 3 that I'm pretty sure have come on my radar here in 2022. So the first person I wanna talk about is Heather from Bell's Library. Heather is so sweet and so wonderful, and I'm really enjoying her content a lot and getting to know her better and better. She has a fun TBR game, and I really became aware of her because she joined our Bookstar read along, and she's been very active in the group, and I got to know her channel, and I really love her content. I like the variety of books that she reads. She is also close to 1,000 subscribers, so go subscribe to her now because she's very pleasant. She's got a very sweet personality, and yeah, she's working hard at this, so she deserves to be at 1,000 subscribers. The second booktuber I want to talk about is a much more recent booktuber, and this is somebody that I found through Page, from Page to Page, and this is Crystal from Bond Book Reviews. And what I love about her channel is that she has this beer pong game that she plays to pick her books each month. It is so much fun, but she has a really bubbly, pleasant personality, and I haven't had too much of a chance to get to know her channel very well, but I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. So I'm looking forward to, in 2022, getting to know more about her, getting to know more about her content. And so yeah, if you get a chance, check out Crystal from Bond Book Reviews. I think you'll really enjoy her content and her personality. And finally, a very recent one for me is Cara from Cara's Bookshelves. And this is a new channel, but she's actually doing really well, really quickly. Her humor is quick. Her wit is fast. I'm always impressed by people who have a really fast wit, because I don't. And so whenever people are like really on top of things and get the jokes flowing, I'm always like, whoa, that's impressive. And Cara has an amazing TBR game. That's the reason I found her channel. She plays Tinder, TBR Tinder. And so she's like swiping with the different books. And I love the way it's set up. I love the choices she makes with it, and it's really been fun to watch. And so this is another channel that I'm just starting to get to know, so I don't have too much that I can offer, but I can say that her wit and personality is a lot of fun. So if you want to check out any of these booktubers, I will link them all down in the description box below so you can go check them out. And so that is it for my sum up and my book tag. Let me know in the comment section down below what book surprised you the most this year. I usually ask what was your favorite book of the week, but I'm curious what book has totally blown you away, either good or bad. Like, was it a positive surprise, or was it something where you're like, oh, I was expecting a lot more from this and it didn't happen? So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see if I read next week. I hope I do. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.